Hello, everyone, tuning in from all over the world. Happy Saturday. I'm your host of A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love, Tomas Garza. And this is going to be a lot of fun today. I've got a couple of treats in store here, a couple of additional volumes that talk about A Course in Miracles that I'm going to share with you here on the live stream today. It's so much fun. And I want to just lead off today, wherever you're joining us from. I've been asking on the last couple of shows the question that I also want to lead with today and have you put your answers in the comments if you'd like to. This is really, really a lot of fun. And the general question that I've been asking the last couple of days here is, how has spirituality changed you? How has your spiritual practice made you a different person? How have you shown up differently in the world? What have been some of your most profound growth moments or changes, transformations, lessons learned over a period of time? Whatever your practice looks like, whether it includes A Course in Miracles or not, doesn't make any difference. Whatever your walk or whatever your practice looks like, how has it changed you? How are you different now compared to when you started? Yeah, that's a great question. We've had some very interesting and very fun answers to this. And I want to just ask this here. Then we'll go into the workbook idea for today, which is lesson 62 in the workbook for students. But yeah, great question for all of you. And how has spirituality changed you? How has your practice changed you? How are you a different person? Because if one starts a spiritual practice and continues it earnestly, in other words, regularly, with diligence, with focused attention, with some intention to do it, there's no way that you can remain the same. Everything is always fluctuating and changing in this world anyway. So there's no way, absolutely no way, that you could embark on a spiritual journey and ever be the same person, which is a beautiful thing. It's why we do it, right? It's why we do it, because deep down, we know that there's something more out there than just the life that we're leading, especially if the life we're leading is full of suffering and pain, and we'd like to be different. We'd like to show up differently. We'd like to have a different experience. This is what leads a lot of people in the world to spiritual practice. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you have to experience rock bottom, but it might. And it might have meant that for you. It might have meant that you had such a dark time in your life that you actively made a decision to seek a way out, and then you followed that decision, whatever that looks like. So this is fun today because I'm going to mention a couple of volumes in addition to A Course in Miracles that I want to call your attention to, and I highly recommend them because I've read them. They're books and they're really, really wonderful. There is a lot of additional material out there about A Course in Miracles. Since the course came out in the 1970s, there have been a number of commentaries on it. There have been a number of books that have been written about the principles described in A Course in Miracles. And there have been a number of online communities, blogs that have popped up. I've written a blog myself called Change Without Limits that went through a year of the workbook. Actually, the second time I did it 3 years ago. And I look back at some of those entries and I realize, wow, I've got a completely different understanding now today than I did in 2018. No question about that. That was 3 years ago. And I've been going every day with A Course in Miracles ever since. It's been the foundation of my own spiritual practice for the past 8 years. So one of the foundational principles of the Course is forgiveness. And you may have heard this, you may have experienced this. If you're an experienced Course student, then you know this is one of the highlight reels of A Course in Miracles. So, what is meant by forgiveness is something that is a little bit different than the way we view it in the world. People don't really forgive when you think about it in the world, do they? Your mother might say, well, I forgive you for being habitually bad and for breaking every single rule and doing things the way that she would not do them. And I forgive you now. Maybe this is something that you heard growing up, but if you do this again, then there's going to be X consequence. Or I can forgive this behavior, but not that behavior, right? It's not total. The latter example of forgiving some behaviors, some transgressions, and not all of them is much more common in the world, isn't it? We often harbor grudges against people for years and years, decades, maybe even your entire lifetime unresolved. And it becomes part of our own identity, even of who we are. We say, well, we despise so and so, we hate so and so, we loathe this person or this group of people. We can't stand this, we can't stand that. Right? It becomes so ingrained that it's a part of our identity. And forgiveness helps us to see what we're doing. Number one, see what we're doing to ourselves without thinking about it and through no fault of our own, because these beliefs, these cultural beliefs have been instilled in us and ingrained in us from a very early age, when we were children, and we didn't have the ability to get out of that. So what do? Well, we spend time as adults unlearning things. We really do, don't we? We spend time unlearning things, and forgiveness is one of the most powerful tools that A Course in Miracles offers us for helping us to awaken to the presence of love, to who we really are. Now, yesterday in lesson 61, we looked at a fact: I am the light of the world. That's yesterday's lesson here. Today's lesson 62, reads, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. So, as the light of the world, forgiveness is my function. I'm here to extend love. How do we do this? Well, let's start with forgiveness. Now, mind you, if you're looking at all of these ideas in the workbook for students and some resonate more strongly with you than others, that's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal for the ego to pitch a fit, to throw up its hands and yell and scream and give all kinds of resistance and tell you all kinds of reasons why you can't forgive. But we can. It's a decision that we make. And this workbook lesson will help us with that. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. What we're doing with the thought system of A Course in Miracles is we're bringing our illusions to truth. A Course mentions that and uses that exact language in many different places. We're bringing our illusions to the truth. What are our illusions? Well, that we're cut off, that we're separate, that we suck. I mean, do you talk to yourself this way? A lot of people do, right? That we suck, that we're unworthy, that someone else is better than us, that we're broke, that we're poor, we have nothing, we're not capable of anything, we can't. Now, I'm not capable of that, I can't. And it sounds maybe a little bit weird here in the abstract, but if you think about it, this is how so many of us actually talk to ourselves. We're, without knowing it, often going to town on ourselves. We are sabotaging ourselves, constantly telling ourselves that we're limited and arguing for our limitations. We're identifying with our own limitations. And in fact, forgiveness is our function. It is a function of love. What we're doing is we're bringing all of these illusions of separation, of pain, of inability to do something, of incompetence, lack of value. Yeah, we're bringing all of our limits and our limitations to the truth, which is limitless. And if that's all you take from today's talk, that's absolutely perfect. That's all you need. What we're doing in A Course in Miracles is we're bringing our illusions to the truth and not the other way around. Now, the other way around doesn't really work very well, right? It doesn't work all that well to just say, okay, none of this is real. That's the truth. Okay. And then what, right? Then what? So we're here in the world, which we call relative truth, as opposed to the absolute, which is truth, reality, which just is. God is. Yeah. We need to work with the tools that we've got, don't we? In other words, the physical body, yeah, which is an illusion. We are not the body, ultimately. However, here we are appearing to be it, so we work with it. It's a communication mechanism. We work with things like books, like cell phones and computers, the internet. We work with other people who appear to be having a separate experience, but we know deep down that that's not the case. So, how do we help bring some of these illusions, these untruths about ourselves to the truth? Well, forgiveness is one way. A Course in Miracles is brilliant in the standpoint that it gives us something to do. Meditation practice gives us something to do. We're not expected to just believe that all of this is an illusion and then snap, we wake up from it. We need to attenuate ourselves to that. We need to practice, enter practice sessions, practice periods, meditation, enter prayer, right? Enter reading things like a text in A Course in Miracles or the Bible or the Quran or whatever, it could be another sacred text from the world, reading, right? Devotionals, enter practice, something that we do to train ourselves, really to train our minds, to attenuate our minds to a different way of looking at things. Now, at first presentation, this different way of looking at things might seem shocking, and you might react very strongly against it, saying, yeah, no, this is wrong. And that's okay. That's okay if you have that reaction. Part of the genius of this workbook is that it doesn't ask that you believe in everything. You don't have to believe that ultimately we're all one, that we are the Son of God. You don't have to believe that God is. That you don't have to. We're not being asked to believe anything that runs so contrary to our free will or our current place. In other words, our current conditioning, because we've all been conditioned in one way or another. We're not asked to just blanket believe that, just to show up and practice, and then the truth becomes revealed. If we're bringing our illusions to the truth doesn't go anywhere. It simply is. And what we're doing is we're bringing our illusions to that. Forgiveness is one way that we do that. So forgiveness, if you think about it, is a gift to you. It's a tremendous gift to yourself. And it's a tremendous gift to the people that you forgive, the situations that you forgive, the world itself. And in the commentary for today's lesson, the workbook tells us that our goal is to find out who we are. This is so true. Yeah. Our goal is to ask the question, who am I? This is the goal of spiritual practice, to find out who we are. And when we find out who we are, then illusions most definitely fall away, because who we are, what we are, is more powerful than we can imagine in our limited point of view. And it is limited. Now, you may feel that your point of view after having started a spiritual practice is a lot less limited, and that's good. I'd love to hear that in the comments. I'd love to see that in the comments. So, how do you forgive? Well, forgiveness, the Course tells us, is either total or it's not at all. I mean, that may sound harsh, but it's true, right? In the world, think about it. We forgive some people, but not others. We can forgive the dog for peeing on the carpet, but we can't forgive the leader of an opposite political party whom we despise, right? That's the way that we operate in the world. So forgiveness, to be effective and complete, must be total. Now, that may seem daunting, and it does to some people, because you may have had situations in your life where someone has legitimately abused you, and you may not be in a place right now where you are able to forgive that person genuinely, deeply, and that's perfectly okay. What we do is we start where we are, and we start with a general, maybe an abstract lesson like this, like forgiveness is my function as the light of the world, and just repeat that to yourself. Even if all you do is remind yourself of today's lesson, this is very, very poignant. It's very, very powerful, and it's very good to practice. It begins to orient our minds more toward truth than illusion. Again, if all you can do is forgive the dog for going to the bathroom on the carpet, that's fine. And by the way, when I talk about forgiveness, I'm also talking about ourselves. So many people find it really difficult, if not to them impossible, to forgive themselves. So yeah, leave no stone unturned. This is what A Course in Miracles does, if you haven't noticed, is it just lays it all out there for us. And we practice it. We practice it until we begin to have the living, breathing experience of it. What then? We continue to practice it. We continue to forgive. We continue to extend love. So at the outset of the broadcast here, this is my radio background. I'm calling it a broadcast, which it is actually. I mentioned that I was going to introduce you to a couple of books that you may be familiar with that have really helped me get an understanding of what forgiveness looks like, what it means, and how specifically you practice it. So I want to share some of these with you. I'm going to put them up on the screen. There are audiobooks and online resources, ebooks available for all of these, but I'm old-fashioned and I prefer paper copies of the book. This is funny. This is called The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. Talks a lot about the foundational principles of A Course in Miracles, the philosophy of the Course, and it's very, very funny. Gary Renard was visited by a couple of ascended masters, and their dialogue is hysterical because they give him a hard time, and he's very frank and very funny about his own illusions, his own walk in the world, and talks a lot about the principles of A Course in Miracles. I recommend it highly. It's called The Disappearance of the Universe. It's also funny because who said spirituality has to be totally serious all the time? I mean, really? Come on. I don't think so. Okay. So that's a great one. Also, this book, Take Me to Truth, is a really, really wonderful book. It's called Undoing the Ego. That's the subtitle. This talks a lot about the principles of A Course in Miracles as well. And as you can see, I've got several Post-it notes and all of that, marking my space, things of that nature. This is called Take Me to Truth. And the authors are Anouk Sanchez and Tomas Vieira. Tomas, just like my name. Yeah, this is a great one that talks about the basic philosophies of A Course in Miracles and how A Course approaches forgiveness and how it impacts you. That's a really important thing in today's world, is we always ask when we're looking at someone's business, when we're looking at someone that is making an offer, we always want to know, okay, what's in it for me? So this book will tell you, and it will talk to you about, in written terms that you may really resonate with, what's in it for you when you forgive. Well, what's in it for you when you forgive is a sense of lightness. I can tell you that much right now, just summarizing and paraphrasing. A sense of lightness, a sense of lovingness, and a sense of effectiveness in everything that you do. You get into more of a flow state, and your relationships change for the better, I might say. They change for the better. Yeah, over the course of the last 8 years, I was able to forgive my mother, who was a raging alcoholic, of all kinds of abusive transgressions as I was growing up, that I, unwittingly, of course, but understandably carried with me into adulthood, even into my 40s. Now I'm 49 now, and I first picked up this course when I was 41, 8 years ago. During that time, I've been able to forgive her on a very high level, which was beautiful. She passed away in 2016, and it's very empowering for me to be able to forgive someone that has had a history of abuse. Yeah, and it's not something that we have to expect ourselves to be able to do right now, today. If this is the first time that you thought about the importance of forgiveness, then you know we I can only recommend that you start with what you're capable of, and that you practice today's idea. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Just repeat that to yourself. You can do it with your eyes closed. You can do it with your eyes open. And this will bring you happiness. It will, if you commit to it and do it more than once. If all you do is repeat it once and then say, hey, look, yeah, nothing's changed. Well, all right, fine. That's what you want, right? So if you really want true joy, if you really want to awaken to love, repeat this as often as you can think about it today. That's what the workbook recommends that we do. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. All right. So I'm going to check the comments here and say hello to all of you. Thank you all for joining me here today. And as I bring this up, again, the question, if you haven't had an opportunity to type that in here, how has spirituality made you a different person? Yeah, curious to know. Hi, Kimberly. How are you? Ah, you're also 49. Beautiful. It's a great age, right? Not quite 50. I like that. I'll roll with it. Robert, good evening. Hi, how are you? And Bernadette, hi. And Stephanie, yes, thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. So Bernadette, yeah, I need to do meditation more. It brings a calm over me. Yes, I have a lot to say about this. I think I'm going to run over the half hour. Should we do that? Yeah, let's do that. And you prefer morning as it sets the tone for the day. Yes, and good afternoon, Bernadette, and happy belated birthday, by the way. So, um, meditation, yeah, there's so much that I can say about this. I've had a meditation practice, a personal meditation practice, for about 36 years. I mean, I started it back in the mid 1980s, about 1985. I was a sophomore in high school, and I had a geometry teacher, right? Not the kind of place that you would think somebody would establish a lifelong meditation practice, but with the Holy Spirit and with God, you I'd never know, right? So our geometry teacher would have all of us, sophomores in high school, come and sit down and meditate for 3 or 4 minutes, guided meditations, at the beginning of class every day. And of course, kids rolled their eyes and thought it was stupid and thought, well, why in the hell am I doing this? Come on, I'd rather be doing anything else. And then some of those same kids thought, well, we're not doing geometry, so I guess this is okay. And what I found, to my surprise at the time, is that I really resonated with that. And it's been 35 plus years. And along with the scheduling, now Bernadette, to speak to your comment, I also do a lot of it in the morning. It's part of my morning routine. I mean, part of what I do every morning is have a cup of coffee and read from A Course in Miracles. I'm going through the text in the workbook as well, and journal, and just sit and get my day started off on the right foot, so to speak. It's really important to me that I don't rush. I don't do well rushing. I've never even tried to multitask. Utterly impossible. People may try to do it. You may try to do it. How's that working out for you? Yeah, we're not capable of it. I admitted that to myself a long time ago. So it's really, really important to me that my day start off in a calm way. That way I'm able to show up, that I think more clearly. I just feel better. So yeah, the morning is what I like to do, and of course I meditate sometimes in the evening and sometimes during the day. And with these workbook lessons, you can just do it anytime you remember to do it. It could be 1:30 in the afternoon, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah. And yeah, so lots of comments, lots of people joining us. Hello, Mona. Yes, and Kimberly. Yeah, too much busyness, right? We have too much busyness in the world. Yeah, we really do. It is just, we find it challenging, don't we, to take time for ourselves. I can't stress the importance of that enough, just for general health and general self-care, to say nothing of spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is a big part of this, but yeah, even leaving that component out, self-care is so important. And really, you can't leave spiritual practice out because it informs every single thing that we do, doesn't it? And yeah, it's we're bombarded in the world. We're inundated. We've got our social media feed and a long to-do list and our Twitter feed, and everybody's clamoring for our attention. It's crazy, right? I mean, really, a course calls us insane. And it's not far from the mark because we're crazy. We're crazy in the world to bombard ourselves with all of this information and expect to be able to process it all and lead a normal life. If you have a family, and show up for your family, right? I mean, if you have kids, show up for your kids, right? Do a good job in work and your career. And, we ask a lot of ourselves. One thing we can do, because we have free will and we've never lost it, is chill out. Drop some busyness, right? For sure. And it's a challenge for all of us in the modern world because we receive these messages from society again and again and again and again saying, you must do this, you must do that. And we get messages that we're not a good person if we don't, right? We get messages that we're not doing a satisfactory job in the economic realm if we're not, or we're not a good citizen, or we don't care, or we're slack or lazy, right? All kinds of things. Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in here. Let me just share these additional books here one more time before we wrap up. One of them that talks a lot about forgiveness, as talked about and presented in A Course in Miracles, is called Take Me to Truth. So that's one that you can look at. And the other, which is hysterically funny, I think it's funny, The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. Both of these talk also, by the way, about the basic philosophy, the metaphysics, if you want to call it that, of A Course in Miracles. In other words, they describe in further detail the thought system here. And if you find that this material is a little esoteric, maybe people have said to me, it's a little out there, it uses language in different ways on purpose, very deliberately, so that we come to have a different understanding of some of these foundational principles. And things and terms don't mean the same in A Course that they often do in conventional parlance, which is good because it wants us to think about things differently. That's the point. That's the point of bringing your illusions to truth, is seeing things in a different light. So the truth, which has never gone anywhere, can simply shine the illusions away. we bring them to the truth. In other words, we acknowledge them and work with them, through them, really, bringing them to the truth. This is one thought system with which we can do that. Okay, so thank you all for tuning in. I very much appreciate all of the comments, all of the shares, the likes, the loves. This is such a joy for me to be able to interact with you and live. I love it. So if you're catching this on the replay, the question that I've been asking that I'd love to hear your feedback on is, how has spirituality changed you? How are you a different person now versus when you began your practice, whenever that was? And everybody have a beautiful weekend. I will be back here tomorrow because this live stream is daily here on Enlightened World Network. And everyone have a great rest of your day.